What is a phrasal verb? Well, a phrasal verb is a combination of a verb and one or more particles. So maybe a preposition or an adverb or both at the same time. And together they function as a single unit, as one verb, often meaning that it cannot be deduced from the individual parts. Phrasal verbs are commonly used in everyday English, and they often have multiple meanings depending on the context in which they are used. They can be separable, so the particle can come after the object, or inseparable, so the particle always comes after the object. Here are some examples of some common phrasal verbs. To give up, meaning to stop doing something or to quit. So she gave up smoking last year. To put on, meaning to wear. So he put on his coat and went outside. Take off, meaning to remove. So she took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. To get up, meaning to rise from bed. So I usually get up at 6 a.m. on weekdays. To turn off, so meaning to stop the flow of something. So can you turn off the music, please? Or don't forget to turn off the water. Look after, meaning to take care of someone or something. So she looks after her younger sister when their parents are at work. And finally, pick up, so meaning to collect or lift something. So I need to pick up some groceries at the shop on my way home. So why are phrasal verbs so hard to learn? Well, phrasal verbs could be hard to learn for many reasons. First of all, they can have multiple meanings. So phrasal verbs often have different meanings depending on the context in which they're used. For example, take off can, as we said, to remove something, but it can also be to become successful. So the company's new product really took off. Could be an example of that. This can make it difficult to remember which meaning to use in a given situation. Another reason they're difficult is they have quite an idiomatic usage. Phrasal verbs are often used idiomatically, meaning that their meaning cannot be easily inferred from the individual words. For example, get over. That means to recover from something emotionally. So it took her a long time to get over the death of her father. But the meaning is not clear at all from just the words get or over alone. Another reason is that there is a lot of irregularity in phrasal verbs. Some of them have irregular forms or meanings that do not follow predictable patterns. For example, look up means to search for information, but to look down on means to think poorly of someone or to not think positively of someone. Another reason for them being so difficult is their informality. So phrasal verbs are often used in informal or colloquial contexts, which can make them difficult to understand for non-native speakers who are not familiar with the nuances of the language. Overall, phrasal verbs can be challenging to learn because they require a deep understanding of the nuances and idiomatic usage of the English language. However, with practice and exposure to authentic language use, learners can become more comfortable with phrasal verbs over time. So, how can we learn them? Here are some ways people can learn. Read and listen to authentic English materials. This can include books, articles, TV shows, movies, podcasts, you know. Exposure to authentic language use can help learners become familiar with phrasal verbs in context. Focus on a few phrasal verbs at a time, rather than trying to learn all of the phrasal verbs or many phrasal verbs at the same time. I mean, we have a lot, so that's almost impossible. You might find it easier and more effective to focus on a few at a time, maybe in a section of phrasal verbs. For example, just phrasal verbs connected to work, or just phrasal verbs connected to travel. And of course, always practice them in sentences. If you write examples, for sure you will need examples. Keep a specific list for phrasal verbs too. Learners can keep a list of phrasal verbs that they encounter, and if you review them regularly, that can really help you learn them. They can also note the meaning and example of sentences to help with the memorization. So, as I said before, lots of examples in context. As always, things like flashcards can always be really useful with pictures or more examples. It can be a really useful tool. You can write a phrasal verb on the one side and the definition or a photo on the other side. Examples, again, always useful. And always use them in context, okay? Because there are many different uses of them, the context is always very important. So you can practice using them in sentences or conversations with native speakers, or by writing short paragraphs or essays that incorporate the phrasal verbs they are learning. Use online resources on our website and the quiz section. Keep working on it in the lesson. Here are some examples of idiomatic phrasal verbs that can be challenging for learners to understand.